Look around. Every excuse you've ever made, nobody cares. Not your parents, not your boss, not the world. You're either producing results or you're irrelevant. It's black and white. You think anyone at the top ever said, "I didn't feel like it today"? You think empires are built by people who press snooze, who whine about how hard life is. No. Empires are built by killers, by executioners, by people who wake up every day and do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. You're not tired, you're undisciplined, you're not unlucky, you're untrained. You've convinced yourself that comfort is normal. But comfort is where dreams go to die. Every second you waste making excuses is a second someone else is executing, and they're going to take what could have been yours. Stop lying to yourself. The world doesn't owe you understanding. It owes you nothing. You want respect, dominate. You want freedom, execute. You want a life worth living, then build it with your own two hands, and never look back. Listen closely. Every excuse you whisper to yourself is a betrayal of your own potential. When you wake up and decide that traffic, the weather, or last night's late night scrolling session are valid reasons for underperforming today, you're handing victory to someone else. Excuses are the weight that chains you to mediocrity. They serve no one but fear, and fear has no place in the mind of someone who wants to dominate life. Think about the people you admire, champions in the ring, CEO in skyscrapers, warriors in every arena. Do they sit around justifying their failures? No. They don't wake up wondering if they're too tired, too unprepared, or too unlucky. They wake up with a single question: what action am I taking today? They don't wait for the perfect moment because they understand that perfection is a myth, and it's a myth that excuses cling to. They understand that the world doesn't pause for you. It doesn't rewind when you complain. It rewards movement, it rewards progress, and it punishes hesitation. You might tell yourself that you'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow is a beautiful lie. It feels safe. Tomorrow, I'll hit the gym. Tomorrow, I'll write that chapter. But tomorrow never comes until you make it come today. Every tomorrow you bank on is interest accruing on your regret. The debt compounds faster than you realize until one day you wake up and the man you wanted to be is living inside someone else's story. And why? Because you learn to speak in excuses instead of action. Excuses are the language of the weak. They're the weapon of the uncommitted. You say, "I don't have time," but you had time to check social media, to binge a show, to scroll for hours. You say, "I'm not motivated," but motivation is a byproduct of action. You get motivated by doing, not by waiting for some mythical bolt of lightning to strike your brain and declare you worthy. Champions don't wait for a motivation to visit. They create it through discipline. They train their minds the way they train their bodies. Repetition, sacrifice, relentless pressure, until excuses are a foreign concept. Let me tell you something. The world isn't interested in your reasons. It doesn't keep track of how hard you worked or how many times you tried. It only cares about what you produce. You could spend a lifetime explaining why your project failed, listing 100 carefully constructed justifications, but none of that adds up to a single victory. At the end of the day, the scoreboard only shows numbers, wins and losses, profits and deficits, success and failure. It doesn't show diaries of excuses. It doesn't show essays on your suffering. It only shows results. You need to accept that reality. If you want to be taken seriously, you have to deliver. If you want respect, you have to earn it through measurable outcomes. If you want power, you have to prove yourself. Listen, anyone can talk. Anyone can brainstorm. Anyone can dream. Very few deliver. Very few execute. Execution is your currency. Excuses are worthless. And in this marketplace, worthless currency will get you nothing but scorn. Every time you feel the urge to rationalize, to shift blame, to soften the blow of your inaction, remember, someone else out there is capitalizing on that same time you're wasting. They're using those same hours you're squandering to build, to grow, to conquer. They're writing emails, closing deals, training their bodies and minds. They're seizing opportunities while you're busy apologizing to yourself. And when they cross the finish line, they won't ask, "Why did my competitor complain so much?" They'll celebrate their own execution. And you'll be left wondering what might have been. Stop treating yourself like a victim of circumstance. You're not a bystander in your life. You're the architect. You hold the blueprint. But if you let excuses run the show, the blueprint will gather dust. You'll become a spectator in your own existence. Decisions don't happen on the couch. Victories don't happen in comfort zones. Empires aren't built on maybe. They're built on I will. Strip away every excuse you've ever made. List them if you have to. I'm too busy. I'm too tired. I didn't have the right resources. And now burn that list. Watch the smoke of your justifications dissolve into nothing, because from this moment on, your path is clear. Action, action, action. When excuses come knocking, refuse to open the door. Build an empire with your sweat, your will, and your relentless refusal to accept anything less than execution. You think motivation is a spark that lights a fire in your soul, but it's a lie whispered by those who have never pushed past pain. You feel tired? Good. You feel scared? Perfect. Those sensations mean you're doing something real. Discipline is the muscle that turns trembling hesitation into iron resolve. You don't wait for the perfect mood, the right playlist, or the ideal sunrise. You show up, day in and day out, and you do the work whether you like it or not. Feelings are fickle. They shift with the seasons, with the forecast, with the number of likes on your last post. If you anchored your life to emotion, you'd be shipwrecked at the first sign of a storm. Champions don't check in with their feelings. They check off their to-do lists. They wake before sunrise because they know that at 5 a.m., when the world is silent and the excuses are asleep, real progress is made. While your mind is spinning tales of weakness, disciplined people are conquering goals. You might protest that discipline is cold, that it strips away joy. Let me tell you, there is a brutal joy in mastery. There is undeniable freedom in self-control. Every rep you force through when your muscles scream, every extra hour you grind when pleasure screams louder, these moments build a fortress around your willpower. And inside that fortress, you live untouchable by distraction, impervious to doubt. A life governed by emotion is a life at the mercy of passing whims. A life governed by discipline is a life you command. Imagine two people trying to learn the same skill. One wakes up enthusiastic, studies for a day, revels in the new knowledge, then drifts away when novelty fades. The other wakes up every morning at the same hour, opens the books even when interest is a ghost, and practices until the world forgets they're alive. Guess who masters the skill? The world doesn't crown the hopeful daydreamer. It rewards the relentless executor. Discipline is the silent undertaker of dreams that die in the cradle of emotion. Think about the greatest empires in history. They weren't built in moments of euphoria or under the euphoric haze of excitement. They were built in the trenches, in the grind, in the repetition of cold, calculated effort. Every brick laid in Rome didn't lay itself on a day when the architect felt like working. Every code deployed at a tech giant didn't push through itself when the engineer was bored. Action is the lifeblood of achievement. Discipline is the bloodstream that carries it. When you feel like quitting, you're 15 seconds away from a breakthrough. That twinge of pain, that gasp for air, that racing heartbeat. Those are signals that you're alive and on the edge of growth. If you stop, you deny yourself the transformation that follows suffering. Discipline tells you to embrace the discomfort, to lean into the storm. Emotions will beg you to retreat, to glide back into comfort, to choose safety. Discipline answers with action. I move forward. You will never find victory in a comfort zone. It's a sterile cage where emotions dance without consequence. You might feel peace there, but peace is for the unambitious. If you want to win, you must train your mind like you train your body. Expose it to resistance and force it to adapt. Feelings will lie, but discipline will never steer you wrong. It's the unerring compass pointing to progress, one step at a time, no matter how far the destination. Discipline doesn't ask for credit. It doesn't crave applause. It doesn't need validation because its reward is internal growth. You might not see the transformation overnight, but every day you wake up and choose action over emotion, you cement another stone in the foundation of your strength. The path is lonely because most people follow their feelings, and feelings lead them in circles. You follow discipline, and discipline leads you straight to power. This isn't inspirational fluff. This is truth. Feelings are chaos. Discipline is order. Emotion is the heat of a flame that can rage out of control. Discipline is the forging hammer that shapes that flame into a blade. You can wield that blade only if you hammer it every day. So stop waiting for your heart to catch up. Let your will set the pace. Let your habits carve the path. Let your discipline write the story of who you become. You wake up every morning on a battlefield. The ground is littered with people who hesitated, who paused to question their worth, who trusted in goodwill instead of forging their own path. You are not one of those people. You know that in this world, you are either the hunter or the hunted. There is no neutral ground, no middle lane. Every decision you make, every step you take, places you on one side of the divide. To survive and to thrive, you must embrace your role as a predator. Predators don't wait for permission. They don't send feelers out, hoping someone will roll out the red carpet. They stalk their prey with singular focus, eyes locked on the prize, every muscle trained for the kill. They move in silence, strike without hesitation, and disappear before the world can react. This is how you must operate in life. You set a target, whether it's a promotion, a personal best in the gym, or the launch of a new venture, and you pursue it with unrelenting intensity, no second thoughts. No turning back. Every moment you spend doubting your power, you give your prey a chance to escape. On the other side are those who cower, who shrink in the shadows, hoping to be overlooked. They pray for mercy, for a soft landing, for someone else to take the risk so they can follow. But the battlefield shows no mercy. It doesn't discriminate between the timid and the bold. It simply rewards the victor and devours the defeated. If you pause to question your strength, the battlefield will swallow you whole. If you hesitate, your opportunity will vanish. Every second wasted is a gift to someone more brutal, more determined, more deserving of victory. Understand that hunting is not a blood sport for the faint of heart. You will feel the rush of anticipation, the fire in your veins, but you will also feel doubt creep in, whispering that maybe you're overreaching, that maybe the risk isn't worth the reward. Those whispers are the prey's last plea, the battlefield's final trick to soften you up. You must silence them with action. You must act as though victory is not optional but your destiny. Move forward even when the path is dark, even when the odds are stacked against you. Predators don't flinch at danger. They use it to sharpen their instincts. When you strike, strike with everything you have. If you're closing a deal, pour every ounce of charisma and strategy into the room until your counterpart has no choice but to yield. If you're training, drive your body past the point of comfort until pain becomes the language you speak fluently. Predators understand that half measures are poison. They build momentum with each decisive blow, each uncompromising step, until the prey has no escape and the battlefield belongs to them. There will be forces aligned against you doubters, obstacles, even friends who don't understand your hunger. They will raise walls of skepticism and lay traps of distraction. But remember, every wall is just another boundary to break. Every trap is an invitation to prove your resilience. A predator leaps over barriers. It doesn't negotiate with them. It adapts its strategy, finds new angles of attack, and storms the fortress until it crumbles. You must adopt that same mindset. Obstacles are not reasons to retreat. They are challenges to conquer. Fear will try to hitch a ride on your ambition. It will feed you visions of defeat, paint horrors of failure in every corner of your mind. But fear is the sign that you're alive, that you're pushing the envelope. Predators don't eliminate fear. They channel it into a force that fuels their charge. They stare it down in the face and roar louder when fear says stop. They say go faster. Let that tension be the wire that charges your limbs, the spark that ignites your will. The battlefield is not a place for bystanders. It demands commitment, aggression, and a ruthless devotion to your goal. If you choose to be the hunted, you will spend your life looking over your shoulder, constantly vulnerable, always on the defensive. But when you choose to be the hunter, you seize control. You dictate the pace, the terms, the outcome. You learn to read the terrain, to anticipate the prey's next move, to strike at the moment of maximum impact. So embrace your nature. Discard the illusion of safety. Recognize that the world belongs to those who claim it with force, who refuse to bow or negotiate. In this life, you are either the one who chases or the one who flees. Choose your side and unleash yourself. You can dream all you like. You can sketch out brilliant strategies on whiteboards, fill notebooks with grand plans, and rally crowds with fiery speeches until your voice goes hoarse. But none of that matters a damn if you don't follow through. Ambition is a hollow echo. It sounds important, but it doesn't move the needle. Words are cheap currency, spent recklessly by anyone who craves attention. Execution is the only real money in the bank. It's the only proof that you're not just another armchair warrior chanting empty slogans. Think about every charlatan you've ever seen. They're the ones with the flashiest talk, the loudest microphones. The Instagram feeds full of motivational quotes. They talk about changing the world, disrupting industries, rewriting the rules, and then they vanish when it's time to deliver. They stand on podiums and shout about all the things they're going to do, but when you check back 6 months later, there's nothing but dust and echoes. Real leaders don't depend on hype. They depend on results. You might tell yourself that you're different, that you have integrity, that your ambitions are backed by solid conviction. But conviction without action is a mirage. It can fool you for a moment, but it will evaporate under any real pressure. You need to build a track record, not a resume. Every time you announce a goal, you create an obligation. And the world is watching. Will you honor that obligation, or will you bow out when the first obstacle shows its face? Execution forces you to answer that question every single day. Execution doesn't happen in boardrooms or on stages. It happens in the trenches, in the dark hours when no one is looking. It's the cold morning when you drag yourself out of bed to train, the late night when you code until your eyes burn, the weekend when you negotiate deals while your friends sleep in. It's the moment you choose work over comfort every time. That's where the real power is forged. Ambition lights the flame, but execution is the hammer and anvil that shape it into an unbreakable weapon. Winners are not born out of speeches. They're born out of consistency. They don't say they'll hit $1 million in sales. They hit $1,000 today and build on it. They don't promise to dominate the market. They secure one client at a time, then 2, then 5. They don't claim they'll reinvent the game. They refine the basics until they own the field. Each small victory, each incremental gain, compounds into unstoppable momentum. Ambition alone can't do that. Only relentless execution can. Look around at your heroes. They're not the ones who wrote the most convincing mission statement. They're the ones whose names appear on trophies, whose products sit on shelves, whose companies top the charts. They're the ones who got their hands dirty, who weathered setbacks, who adjusted their approach on the fly. Their speeches might have inspired people, but it was their actions that delivered the breakthrough. And you know what? Those breakthroughs didn't happen because they believed in themselves. They happened because they refused to rest until they had tangible proof. If you want influence, start by doing. If you want respect, earn it through tangible results. If you want legacy, build something that can't be erased by a tweet or a bad press cycle. It's easy to talk about your vision, but the moment you commit to execution, you expose yourself to risk. You risk failure, criticism, ridicule, but risk is the currency of champions. If you're not willing to stake everything on execution, you don't deserve the spoils. Stop rehearsing your lines and start rehearsing your actions. Show up when it's inconvenient, Deliver when it's painful. Persist when everyone else has given up. That's where the difference lies. The chasm between all the talkers and the few who actually move the world. Execution doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for the stars to align. It doesn't care if you're tired or scared. Execution simply gets the job done. So the next time you feel the urge to stand up and declare your ambitions to the world, pause. Ask yourself, will my words be followed by deeds, or am I just cheapening my own brand with empty noise? Words might draw a crowd, but only execution builds an empire. Only execution engraves your name into history. Only execution matter. You think comfort is a reward, but it's a prison. You sink into your couch, scroll through someone else's accomplishments, and pat yourself on the back for researching. Meanwhile, the world beyond your living room is claiming territory, taking risks, and collecting trophies. Comfort whispers to you that everything is fine, that there's always tomorrow, that you deserve a break. But every second you indulge that whisper, you're forging the bars of your own cage. Empires aren't built in fluff. They're carved out of struggle. Imagine a warrior never leaving his tent because he fears the cold. Imagine an entrepreneur never picking up the phone because they dread rejection. Imagine an artist never touching paint because they worry about making a mess. All of these are comfortable positions, but none of them produce victories. Comfort is the softest place on earth to die. It lulls you into a false sense of security, while the ambitious circling overhead pick you off one by one. When you treat discomfort as an enemy, you give it power over you. But when you embrace it, you seize control. Every empire in history stands on the bones of discomfort. The Roman legions endured blisters, freezing nights, and unbearable marches. The captains of industry worked through sleepless nights, missed birthdays, and cafe coffee jitters to close that next deal. The artists who changed culture, who shattered conventions, who forced the world to look at beauty and pain with new eyes, they did not create in comfort. They created in chaos. They used discomfort as their chisel. And you're sitting still because the couch cushions fit your shape. Discomfort is feedback, an honest friend that tells you exactly where you need to grow. When your muscles burn, they're screaming for adaptation. When your palms sweat before a pitch, they're alerting you that the moment matters. When your heart races stepping on stage or logging into a live call, it's the universe reminding you that you're alive. Most people hear that feedback and retreat. They treat the symptoms of growth as reasons to quit. They turn vulnerability into an excuse for safety. Meanwhile, the world beyond the screen hunts with precision. If you never lean into discomfort, you never discover what you're truly capable of. You don't forge resilience, you manufacture fragility. You don't cultivate confidence, you inflate self-doubt. You don't accumulate victories, you stockpile regrets. You inhabit a fantasy world where every fear is justified and every dream is deferred. Meanwhile, the real world keeps score. Did you ship the product? Did you launch the program? Did you sign the contract? Comfort doesn't win those metrics. Discomfort does. Break free by making discomfort your ally. Seek out the hardest tasks first. Wake up before sunrise to feel the cold sweep through your bones, because when you can conquer an icy morning, a sales call feels like spring. Run until your lungs burn, because the soreness makes every office email feel weightless. Speak to that investor, even though your voice shakes, because authenticity trumps perfection every time. Every mile run, every rep forced, every candid conversation strips away the illusion of ease. You start to see comfort for what it is, a mirage. Your friends will call you crazy. They'll ask why you drove through traffic at dawn, why you worked on a Saturday, why you put yourself through hell for a 9-figure goal. Comfort taught them to seek balance, to preserve their energy, to tiptoe around pain, but balance is for slackers. True balance is achieved when you've earned every moment of rest. You don't trade a life of struggle for comfort. You trade weeks of relentless work for days of well-deserved ease. And those days taste like victory. Don't confuse comfort with happiness. Happiness is a fleeting moment of clarity, a reward for action. Comfort is a long, short-term anesthetic that dulls your edge until you can't remember what ambition felt like. Comfort numbs you to urgency, to danger, to opportunity. It's the silence before your window of chance slams shut. And one day you'll wake up and realize the doors you left open have closed forever. Empires don't wait for you to get comfortable. You have a choice every day to cradle your fears in plush upholstery or to stare them down in the arena, to press snooze and sleep on excuses or to stand and grind until the world notices, to warm your hands by the glow of your screen or to feel the heat of conflict on your skin. Empires aren't born in the glow of comfort. They ignite in the spark of discomfort. So burn your excuses, shatter your soft spots, and build your legacy on the only solid ground that exists, the ground you conquer when you step off the couch and into the fight.